welcome. My name is Dave, and this is my company is Therapy Gardens. I come to Quincy quite a bit, probably every couple months or so, and I was here last. What did we do last? Did we do the festive soups? Oh, we did the Taste of Greece, following the Mediterranean diet. Yeah, that was a good one too. Well, they're all good ones if you ask me. So today we're here to talk about, what are we here to talk about? Sleep, that's right, sleep. So it's really very interesting. There's a newborn somewhat in the family. I have a nephew who's not really my nephew, but he's kind of my nephew. So they just had a newborn. And they don't even live with me. They have their own apartment. And it has upset my life. I don't even live with this little thing, and it's upset my routines and all that. So I can only imagine what it's like to actually live with one. And talk about sleep deprived. When he comes over in the morning and when he drops the kid off, he stops to say hi, and you can see in his face, he's like, I haven't slept in a week. I'm like, probably not gonna for a while. So, but just before we get going, a couple disclaimers. Actually, before we even do the disclaimers, I want you to join in, shout out if you have, comments, questions, insults. You can, just shout them right out. You don't have to wait for me. It makes for a better presentation, a better workshop when people are involved. But like I said earlier, I'm not affiliated with any business or enterprise other than my own. You could tell my mother helped write this. Although extremely charming, I am not a doctor or a nutritionist. I'm not even a sleep technologist, which there actually is such a thing. And they're not the people that work at Jordan's that do the mattresses. They're not, that's not them. You remember that they used to have those commercials? I don't know if they still do, but it was like, our sleep technicians think you need a new mattress, right? I mean, what else are they going to say? So questions and comments are absolutely encouraged, and there's a ton of information in here. So if you're somebody that wants this information, just email me, and I'll send you the whole presentation. You don't even have to think about it. And if you don't have email, if you're not a computer person, just see me afterwards, and we can make arrangements. I can send it to the center, and I'm sure they'd be happy to print it out for you. But there is a lot of information here. And what some folks do is if there's a particular slide that they're interested in, they take a picture of it. So if you have your phone, feel free. Okay? So let's jump right in. So, we mentioned a sleep technologist. What is a sleep technologist anyway? So they assist in the clinical assessment and monitoring, the testing, diagnosis, prevention of sleep-related disorders. They usually assist doctors or labs, and they don't actually work for mattress retailers. Okay, so you want to kind of keep that in mind. It's one of the, there's, when you talk to real scientists, they get really angry about what they call pseudoscience. And pseudoscience is, those old Jordan's furniture, and I love Jordan's furniture, by the way. I absolutely love it. I think they're a great company, and I buy their products. But it's a little ridiculous when you picture, like, they had those commercials with the guy, like, in the white lab coat, like, trying to sell you a mattress. Okay, so you put on a white coat. That makes me trust you more? I'm not sure. So what I do is for sources, I use government sources that I've come to trust and benefit from over the years. So the National Institute on Aging, a lot of the information is taken from there. A lot of the information in here is taken from National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and probably the bulk of the information is from Harvard Medical School's website. And if you're not familiar with that website, it's right there, and I really recommend it. It's really user-friendly, and if there's anything health-related that you're at all interested in, there's a big list, and you check it off, and they'll create a kind of a custom newsletter and email it to you every week. And I do one on my blood sugar is high, and I'm nervous about diabetes and all that, and so I check that off. And I get recipes and tips and the latest research, so it's well worth it. So let's talk about some facts about sleep. We spend about a third of our lifetime sleeping. And sleep patterns have changed over time, but our need for sleep has not. So for example, when I say sleep patterns have changed, back, towards probably the turn of the century, in the 1800s, maybe even in the 1700s, it was very common. You would go to sleep at sundown, and you would sleep till like midnight, or 1 or 2, and then you'd get up and you'd do some stuff at 1 or 2, and then you'd sleep again for a little while until dawn, and you would take a break. And oddly enough, I'm in that sleeping pattern right now, which is very strange. And I don't usually have too much trouble sleeping, but lately I've been in this pattern where I'm falling asleep around 9 o'clock, and then I'm waking up around 1. And then I'm getting up at 1, and I'm like cooking and I'm reading or something. And then I'm going back to bed at like 3 or 3:30 and sleep until about 6. And it's funny, I don't feel tired. I don't, so who knows? Like I said, our sleeping patterns kind of change. The interesting thing is you can't go without sleep. That's the first thing. The world record is about 11 days. And after that, essentially, you will go insane, is more or less what happens without sleep. And poor or lack of sleep has real, true consequences that really aren't as public as they should be, I think. For example, I don't know if you know this, but when they change daylight savings time, there's always a rise in automobile accidents. Always. That's a clue. That should be telling us something. So. And then the other thing is, the bottom line is good sleep is a priority, not a luxury. And I will admit, I used to be a sleep snob. And I'm one of these people, and I came up with that term, by the way, sleep snob. I'm one of these people that, for whatever reason, I am wired, I cannot sleep past like 6 o'clock, sometimes 5:30. Even when I was a kid, like as a kid, I would go to like sleepovers, and all the other kids would sleep till like 9:30, and I'd be up at 6 with nothing to do because everyone else was still sleeping. I'm still like that. And I used to really look down on people that slept till like 8 o'clock. I was like, ugh, you're lazy. The day is wasted. How could you do that? But as the older I've gotten and the more I've experienced bouts of sleeplessness and change in my own life, I realize that people find sleeping patterns that work for them. And if you have a sleeping pattern that has you sleep later in the day, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So why do we sleep anyway? And of everything that we talk about, this is, to me, is some of the most fascinating stuff. Sleep, it makes us feel better. And the best example is when you have hunger pangs and then you eat, you feel better. Sleep is kind of the same way. We don't really know why we need sleep. There's no definitive answer. There's a lot of theories, and they make a lot of sense. And personally, I think it's probably a blend of all of them. So the inactive safety theory is, we sleep in the dark to hide from predators. Makes a lot of sense. It's in our DNA to do that. Energy conservation, the theory is that when you sleep, you're using less resources. So you're not up moving around burning calories and energy. Restorative. We know that muscles and tissue and hair and skin and nails and things like that grow while we're asleep. And then there's this one I find the most fascinating and the most plausible, and it's the brain plasticity theory, and that talks about brain development, and sleep is possibly a place for you to kind of file away the events of the day in either your long-term memory or your short-term memory, and there's something going on up there that's allowing you to do that. And there's dreaming fits into that very well. Is dreaming, are we kind of processing what has happened to us and putting it where it belongs in our brain. And again, there are theories. Some are closer to being proven than others, but they make a lot of sense to me. And I'm sure Harvard Medical School is thrilled that I agree with them. So, sleep and aging. Unfortunately, the news isn't really good. The older you get, the more poor your sleep becomes. The average person requires about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Unfortunately, insomnia is very common in older adults. It can also be caused not just by being not able to fall asleep, but there are things that can keep you from falling asleep and that can wake you up, physical pain being one of them. I recently myself went through a bout of, it looks like They're close to diagnosing it as psoriatic arthritis, which I guess there's a commercial on about it. Someone famous has it. I didn't know. I had never even heard of it. I had psoriasis and I had arthritis, and I guess they put them together now, and it's psoriatic arthritis. But it was keeping me awake at night. It was one of those things that I was waking up with this, throbbing in my knees and my shins, and that's a form of insomnia. Is a type of physical pain that keeps you awake. Medications can keep you awake. Foods you eat, things you drink, caffeine, things like that can keep you awake. Stress and anxiety. I have an uncle who lives in Braintree, and he had a very stressful job, and he's much older now. He's in his 70s, but he retired probably somewhere in his 60s, and he had arthritis and he had sleep problems, and he told me, he said, the day I retired, those problems went away, and I just don't have them anymore. I sleep well. My arthritis has calmed down. So we know that stress and anxiety can really take a toll on the body, and it makes sense that it can take a toll on sleep. And then unfortunately, the quality of our sleep often deteriorates as we age, That's just kind of a fact of life. Some of the consequences from lack of poor quality sleep, some of these might surprise you too. If I'm in your way, just tell me. Increased risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, and obesity. Memory problems and forgetfulness, that can be exacerbated by lack of sleep. Risk of accidents and falls, and increased irritability. But if you look at those top ones, that's some really heavy-duty stuff. And in fact, remember I told you I checked off diabetes in the Harvard Medical School thing. It was the article that was actually emailed to me this morning. And I didn't even have time to put it into the presentation. But it was, is poor sleep contributing to your diabetes? And I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and read the whole article, but I'm sure it is if they're sending me that article to tell me that, But there is good news. And there are a lot of steps you can take to both improve the quality and the length of your sleep, okay? So I've kind of condensed them into what I call 12 tips for better sleep. This one is number one for a reason. This one works. You want a regular sleep schedule. And this is something, when I look back, remember I mentioned when I was a youngster and I would wake up earlier than everybody. I look back and I was always, my whole life, I was someone that 9 o'clock, I'm asleep, 5 o'clock, I'm awake. That's just kind of, my body rhythm is like that. But for my whole life, people kept trying to get me to not do that. When I was young, oh, come on, stay for one more, let's go out here, let's go out there. But now as I get older, I start realizing, I don't even go to concerts anymore, but if I did, do I really need to hear that last song, or can I go home? Will I be better off tomorrow if I get a good night's sleep, or if I hear that song? Unless it's Bob Dylan, I'm going home. That's pretty much it. And I would say Jerry Garcia too, but he's dead. So, but that pattern, that regular sleep schedule is really, really important. And it almost doesn't matter what it is as long as it's regular. So it could be 10 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You could go to sleep at midnight and wake up at 7 a.m. Whatever it is that works for you. You want to follow those same routines on weekends. That's the hard part. That really is the hard part. And messing with your body's rhythm can cause stress hormones to release, which then interrupts your sleep more. So you can get into this cycle where if you all of a sudden you mess with your routine, you're not sleeping, now you've got this added stress hormone that's entering into the situation, and it's hard to get out of. It is hard to get out of. So you just need to try to follow a regular schedule. This one, believe it or not, I wouldn't even think of napping now. When I was younger, I napped a little bit. Like when I was in my late 20s and 30s, I was a high school teacher then, and I think I was just exhausted by the time I got home, dealing with nonsense half the day. But if you are someone who naps, you definitely want to avoid doing it later in the day. You want to do it earlier in the day if you're going to. And if you're an early riser, so if you're somebody like me who's up, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you definitely want to take a nap before 1 o'clock. You don't want to, and it sounds weird. Oh, I took a nap at noon. It sounds weird, but if you get up at 5, it's not weird. Just like for years, I ate lunch because again, I worked at a school at 10:30 in the morning. I ate lunch. But you know what? It worked for me because I'd been up since 5, so I didn't mind. A lot of teachers would complain about that. Oh, I have to eat lunch at 10:30 and I'm starving at 3. For me, that worked. This is another big one. This is a bedtime routine does a couple of things, but the most important thing that it does is it sends signals to your body that it's time to go to sleep. That's what it starts to do, especially over time. And I guess I can still call her a puppy. She's not 2, right? Is it 2 that's a puppy? So she's still about a year and a half. She's a rescue, Brandy. And she's a sweet little thing. She's fresh. She chewed my chess set, and she chewed my paperback novel that I was reading. She's a puppy. That's what she does, yeah. And I tell her, you're lucky you're cute. But one of the things that I realized, I have a bedtime routine that I didn't even know I had until she picked up on it. So my routine is I get up and I rarely watch TV. I watch a little bit of TV, but I mostly read or play around on my computer and stuff like that. And then when I'm getting ready to actually go to bed, I get up and I walk over and I turn the heat down, right? I'm like an old man. I turn the heat down. There's 2 lights that I shut off. There's some lights over the mantle that I unplug. And by the time I reach to unplug that one on the mantle, the dog is up and ready and heading for bed. And she just knows. She sees me doing my routine. And I realized when she did, I was like, you know what? She's realized that this is the routine. Before me, she realized this was the routine. But you want to do something to relax before you go to bed at night. So reading a book is a great way to do it. Read a real book. You can use a Kindle, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because some of the electronics are not good for sleep, right? Using your phone before you go to sleep and things like that, but there are ways you can get around it. However, to be perfectly safe, reading an actual real book is a smart thing to do. I'm a reader, I always have been, so I actually keep 2 books. I'm always reading 2 books at a time, one fiction and usually another nonfiction. And I keep the nonfiction one by my bed. And that's the one that when I can't sleep or if I want to fall asleep or something, I just start kind of going through the nonfiction book. And that usually does the trick for me. I find with the fiction books, particularly if it's a narrative story, what do? I get into the story and I stay up later. I don't actually fall, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, just a couple more pages. As opposed with the nonfiction stuff, I pretty much know how that's going to end. Taking a bath can really be very, very relaxing and soothing before you go to bed. Meditation. Meditation can take the form of just a quiet space. Just kind of, you've heard the term kind of centering yourself. That's really all meditation is. You don't need this, it works for a lot of people, the mantras and sit in a certain position or have a candle or whatever it is that works for some people. But you can just do it on your own, just sitting quietly and just kind of clearing your mind a little bit. You never clear your mind totally. Whenever they say that to me, I'm like, what? Clear your mind? You'd be dead. You don't want to clear your mind. You maybe want to think of more positive things on occasion, but meditation in whatever form you choose could work. Listening to calming music or sounds can always help. Have a small cup of herbal tea. Small cup because you don't want to be in the bathroom all night, back and forth to the bathroom. And I say herbal tea because obviously it has no caffeine. And things like chamomile, lavender, and mint actually have some benefits towards sleep. They actually do help induce sleep a little bit. We're not sure. Is it the warm beverage that you're cupping? Is it the aroma? Is it the actual herb itself? In the case of lavender, it appears to be the herb itself. That does a lot of different things. And this is a really good one, and it's really beyond laying out clothes. So when I was a kid, I can clearly remember I would pick on my mother. At night, before she went to bed, she had like one of those mirrors that you set at the table, like to do your hair and all that stuff. And she'd set that up, and she'd have the makeup, and her coffee cup would be right there. Right? You do this? Yeah, I can see. Yep. See? Yeah. She did it while she was working. And everything was. And I would pick on her, but you know what? I do it now, and it does make it. It sounds crazy, but you can get stressed from not having things laid out for you in the morning, like running around rushing. You really can get stressed by that. So having that kind of routine of laying out things in the morning can be really, really good. I set the coffee pot. That's one thing I do now is I have the coffee pot with the program thing. I set that. I do the little things all that the dog notices, So everyone's got their thing that they do. This has been very helpful for me, white noise. I either use a fan, and I have a fan in my room. I run it all year. I just, in the cooler weather, I just face it away from me. But I'm used to that sound. I like that sound. And if there's other noise in the house, I have some tenants in the house, and I have some neighbors that are a little young, so they like to stay out a little later at night sometimes. And if I don't want that to bother me, I actually use a white noise app on my phone. And it's also a fan noise, and I just turn it up really loud, and that white noise for me drowns out any sudden noise that's peripheral. And for me, that works. A lot of people use air conditioners. You can get white noise machines. You can buy machines that have nature sounds or water or the ocean. You can get apps on your cell phone that do that. And then, like I said, many cell phone apps have all these things. They have all these things. So this is where we kind of talk about, reading and electronic devices and how does that kind of come into play. So you don't want to be looking at a screen about an hour before you go to sleep, okay? This includes television, although if you set back, I think it's 6 feet. If you're back about 6 feet from the television, it's okay. But you don't want to be really up close. When our mothers used to tell us, don't sit too close to the television, it's bad for you. That actually is true. It is bad, it's bad for your sleep. Cell phones are a big one. Now, I can speak to an iPhone because I have an iPhone. I have a setting on my iPhone that at 8 o'clock at night, it changes the light setting so that it's more warming light. And I think it's less of the blue light. I'm not sure. But it's a setting in the iPhone. You can just go into settings and, low light settings. And I set it every night at 8 o'clock it goes on, and it stops at 6 in the morning. And it's just a little bit dimmer. Other than that, I don't really notice it. But that's on the off chance that I'm, using my phone before I go to sleep, but I really try not to. You can use a Kindle and e-readers that are backlit. So, for example, I use the Kindle Paperwhite. Does anyone here use a Kindle? Okay, good. So for me, the Paperwhite seems to work the best. The Paperwhite is the one that I think they've got it, like it simulates reading the best. It simulates having a real book better than anything else. I don't like the Kindle Fire with the colors and all that. I just like the Paperwhite. It actually looks like a book paper. But it's backlit, so that it's not giving you any of that light directly into your eyes. So using a Kindle is fine. So cell phones. So yeah, this is what I mentioned earlier. Most of them have a feature, in addition to the apps and things. They can also, if you leave them on, they can wake you up. And I'll tell you, so my nephew, when his girlfriend was close to having the baby, she was kind of small, so they had decided they were going to induce her. So it was going to be a Monday night. They were going to go into Boston. She was going to be induced. Well, Monday at about 2 in the morning, my phone goes off. It's not a text message, mind you. It's a Facebook message. And it's him going, "She's having the baby. What do I do?" And I said, of all the ways to get in touch with me, you chose Facebook Messenger at 2 in the morning. But I was lucky that it was on, and I happened to hear it, and I was able to respond. You can silence things, but one of the things that's really, for example, I get stressed when I silence my phone because then I'm like, what if someone's trying to, particularly when my mom was alive. That was, I left my phone on because of my mom. I was like, oh. And then I would get woken up by random things all throughout the night. Now they have a feature, most of the smartphones, where you can block out all the calls and then create an exception list that rings right through. And in the iPhone, it's your favorites. So all you do in the, and I don't know how to do it if you have a different phone, but all you do is you scroll through, and if you identify someone as a favorite, then you go into settings and you choose allow favorites to ring through. And what will happen is everyone else, you won't hear it. It'll just, it'll go to voicemail and you won't know. But if they're a favorite, it'll ring right through. But it also has another feature that if someone calls twice in a row, no matter who they are, it rings right through. So that's kind of a good thing too. For example, they could be calling from someone else's phone, right? So like kind of that stuff. But there's all these little tips and tricks and tools and things that you can do. And that one little feature alone put my mind at ease on a lot of things, So just something to think about. Low lighting before bedtime, that's a thing that kind of tells your body that it's getting ready to go to sleep. It also affects the production of melatonin, so you want to sleep in as dark a room as possible. That's something you can get darkening shades if you want, things like that. I'm lucky where my bedroom is. I'm on like the back side of the house, and the sun rises over on the other side. So for me, it doesn't. If I were to sleep late, it wouldn't bother me. All right, and then I always like to give a little word about melatonin. Does anyone take melatonin, or yeah? What do you find? Have you found results? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I took it and kept me awake. It did the reverse.
It did the reverse. Those things can happen. People have different reactions to different chemicals and drugs and all kinds of things. So that doesn't surprise me at all. So melatonin, when it first came out, everyone was taking it. Then science kind of came out and said it doesn't work. It's a placebo, and they did. They actually said that. Then they studied it a little bit further, and now they're saying it actually works better if you take it earlier in the day. So a lot of the doctors that are telling people to take melatonin are starting to tell them take it around 3, 4 in the afternoon, but sometimes 2 o'clock, because it takes a little more time to work. However, if you're taking it now before you go to bed and it works, don't change. All right, but it can affect people differently. That's pretty much the upshot. This is a really important one. I just came from Fitchburg, where I gave a talk on diabetic cooking and recipes and things. And one of the things that I went to a nutritionist because I was kind of flirting with diabetes myself. And one of the things that the nutritionist said, she said, keep your carbs, and she gave me, how much to eat at each meal and all that stuff. And then she said, but if you walk for a half an hour after every meal, all that goes away and you can eat anything you want. And I thought about that and I was like, that's a really powerful motivator to be walking. This weather is fine. It's a little hard in New England in the winter sometimes. But the idea that exercise can not only help you with diabetes, but it can help you tire yourself out both mentally and physically. And that's pretty important. So it helps your body feel tired. It's great for your mental health. It really is. And you try not to exercise, 3 hours or so before you go to bed, because you're revving yourself up a little bit. And any type of exercise works. And the thing, as we age, I used to play racquetball. I love racquetball. I used to play in Quincy. I used to play at the Quincy Y. For years, I played there. And, I had problems with my knees. I told you I had that psoriatic arthritis thing. And I went and I consulted with somebody, and I said to him, am I done with racquetball? And he said, yeah, I think you are. You gotta, unless you want a knee replacement, which I don't. So it's probably gonna be pickleball for me now. But you do what you have to do. But you find the exercise that works for you. So if it's walking, that's great. Gardening counts as exercise. Even light household chores count as exercise. They count as moderate physical activity. So I was down the Cape, and there was this woman there, and little old lady. I found out she was 90, and I made the statement about alcohol that there is no redeeming quality for alcohol, none. She goes, I don't know about you, but wine's good for me. I said, okay, well, fair enough. You're 90 and I'm not, so fair enough. But the fact is, alcohol is just not good for us, period. It just isn't. Even now, to this day, there's still, I'm sure, nursing homes that still serve like a little bit of red wine before bedtime. Oh, it makes them fall asleep. Yeah, it makes them fall asleep, but it's poor sleep. It doesn't help them to stay asleep at all. And that sleep that they do get, that anyone gets it's an alcohol-induced sleep, is not good sleep. It's just not. Caffeine, again, we talked earlier about how different, substances and things affect people differently. I'm somebody, I don't really know why. I could drink coffee at 5 at night and not have a problem. I could drink a can of soda full of caffeine and not have a problem. Some people drink a cup of coffee after 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they can't sleep. So you have to kind of know your body and know when you should cut caffeine off. But they recommend, caffeine does stay in your system for a while. So they do recommend like early afternoon is when you should have your last bit of caffeine. Chocolate has caffeine. If you're sitting at home and you're kind of nibbling on chocolate and you're somebody that caffeine affects you, you want to think about that. And drink small amounts of water. That's the key. Again, you don't want to be up all night back and forth to the bathroom. You want to avoid large meals at bedtime. This is something that I never really understood. There are some people that go out to dinner at like 9 at night. Not anymore. Since the pandemic, a lot of places close earlier now. But it used to be like a lot of people I knew would be like, oh yeah, we're going out to dinner. 9 at night, you're eating dinner, I'm getting ready to go to bed, but you can tell I have no social life. But eating a large meal before bed can absolutely cause digestive problems. Some of the better things to eat before you go to sleep, if you really are hungry, you want to eat something with a little bit of protein. Peanut butter, Greek yogurt, turkey. With the Greek yogurt, watch the sugar. There's a lot of sugar in yogurt. With the turkey, watch the sodium. All right, a lot of sodium in turkey. And with the peanut butter, if you buy the Teddy, you're all set. Buy the low sodium, no sugar Teddy brand. So some things to eat before bedtime, banana, wheat bread, peanut butter, Greek yogurt, again, watch the sugar, lean turkey, milk. Again, milk has a lot of fat, so consider maybe low-fat milk. Almonds. Things to avoid, it says avoid eating before bed. You really should just avoid eating them, I think, if you really look at that list. Pizza, burgers, alcohol, chocolate, cheese. That's my weakness, cheese. If like that Cracker Barrel, if you put that in my house, slowly it would be gone. It wouldn't happen all at once, but little by little, it would be gone by the end of the night. Ice cream, chips, cookies, crackers, all the stuff that's not good for you is not good for you for sleeping too. Now we're going to kind of move into some techniques. So the idea of like counting sheep or just counting actually does work. It kind of puts you in almost like a Zen-like state. And then visualization techniques can be helpful. And I am not at all, those of you who've been to some of my other workshops, you know this about me. I'm not like a touchy-feely, herbalist. I'm not into any of that stuff. However, these visualization techniques do work. And there's one particular one that works really well. It's the beach scenario. Have you guys heard of this one? So you lay down and you picture yourself laying on a beach, whatever beach, would make you the most happy, wherever. And you picture the sun beating down on you, and then you feel it on your feet. And then you visualize it and try to feel it moving up your body and warming up your body as it comes, and feel it come up your arm like that. And by the time you get up to right around here, like your head and your neck, you should be asleep. And that's really, it does work. You feel kind of goofy doing it at first. You're like, what am I doing this for? But it does work. Mental games can work. So for somebody like me, I like to play chess. So sometimes I'll think about chess moves or something in my head. Not that I can hold a lot of them in my head. I can't. Like, you know, these pros can hold like 30 moves in there. I can hold about 2. And then I'm asleep. But all those things, some people, you know, multiplication tables, you know, some people do that. Anything that's kind of a rote thing that maybe helps you shut your brain off a little bit and kind of do something else. You know, kind of like when you're driving and you space out for a minute, or you have some good thoughts while you're driving, or if you're standing in the shower. It's whenever your body takes over that, like in a rote fashion. These are really, really helpful. The deep breathing works in through the nose, out through the mouth. That works for anything. That works for stress relief. That works for just trying to kind of calm yourself down a little bit. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Deep breathing put together with the visualization can really help, like the beach scenario, together with breathing in and out, in through the nose, out through the mouth. But this bottom one here, this really works, and this was developed by the military. So this was actually developed where they wanted to kind of give some tools to military people who, if you're in combat, sometimes you have to sleep when you can. You know, it might be in the middle of the day, it might be, you know, 20 minutes between fighting or something, you know, it could be anything. And so they gave them this kind of method to use. And if you try it, it does work. So you close your mouth and you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Then you hold your breath for 7. And then you exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. And that's a long time. That's a long exhale. But when you do it, you actually can feel, when you exhale, you can feel your body relax. You know, it's almost like deflating a little bit, you know? And you just do that over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. This is one that I include because of, for a couple reasons. One of them, and there's also a technique that I haven't mentioned here that I will, is cannabis. And there are many people that use CBD and THC for sleep, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just haven't updated this presentation to include it. But why I'm reminded of that when I talk about practice safe sleep is I always, when I talk to seniors about cannabis, you want to be aware of that too. If you, for example, if you're someone like, oh, I take a couple edibles before I go to bed. All right, well, say you take a couple of those edibles and then you're in your chair and you're watching TV and you get up and you're a little dizzy. You got to be careful about that. Same thing if you take some edibles to go to sleep. And then you're asleep and you wake up to maybe go to the bathroom or get a drink of water or something like that. You may be disoriented. You always want to keep that in mind. So I like to kind of go over some things, which also this ties into the idea of anxiety and you know, like laying out your clothes for the morning and not being worried about things. This ties right into that. So, you know, a lot of people worry about that. What if there's a fire overnight? You know, so it pays to check your alarms and things and make sure that, all right, I feel comfortable with that. Locking your doors and windows. Keep a telephone by your bed, and like I said earlier, use the Do Not Disturb feature if you have a cell phone, but you should always have a telephone within reach of your bed. Keep some water there, not too much, but that way you don't have to get up at night if you're thirsty. Have a lamp within reach. I actually just I got it on Amazon, and it's like one of those wiry, like the bendable things, and it's just got a little small, it's no bigger than that. And it clips on your headboard, and it's a little bendy thing, and it's the best light, and you move it around you can aim it right at what you're reading, or you can aim it away if you don't want direct light. And it has 3 settings. One is a low blue light, so kind of like the iPhone. One is a really warming kind of light that almost looks like, I don't know why, but it reminds me of the 70s. And then one is just a really bright light. But it's $9.99 on Amazon. So I recommend something like that if you don't have a lamp next to your bed. Never smoke in bed. And it's rare to find people that smoke these days, but I include this now because marijuana. And you do have some people that prefer to smoke marijuana. And just on the off chance that you're one of those folks, you don't want to do it in bed. And then this one I've learned from experience, keep things off the floor, you know, so when you don't throw your clothes on the floor, and even little small rugs and things like that, they can be hazardous. I've actually pulled I did it more for allergies than anything else, but I pulled all rugs out of my house. I have all hardwood floor, you know, especially where, you know, I have a dog now, that works for me. But it also helps with tripping situations and things like that. So some other ideas, and these are ones that, you know, maybe I picked up from other people. Some of them are ones that I don't necessarily believe in as much, but I put them out there because some people do. So a sleep mask, that can certainly work. You can even buy ones now that warm up, that you can put in the freezer if you prefer, you know, something cool. So sleep apnea, that always comes up in one of these. And again, you know, I just want to remind you, I'm not a doctor. I have no formal training. If you think you have sleep apnea, you should have a sleep study because it can be life-threatening. You know, it's sleep apnea, you can stop breathing. And in fact, I mentioned Jerry Garcia earlier. That's technically what he died from, he was in a rehab facility and he died from sleep apnea. He was overweight and, you know, didn't take care of himself. And I'm told, I've never been to these sleep studies, but people have told me now that sometimes you can have them done right at home. You don't have to actually go there. So I think that's probably attractive to a lot of people because I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be able to go and fall asleep at, you know, some sleep study somewhere. I would kind of need my own space. Earplugs, some people use earplugs if you're someone that sound affects you. I don't recommend it because, you know, you want to be alert and awake if something happens. Guided imagery, that's really just the beach scenario, you know, but guided imagery you can think of more specific things if there are things personal to you that maybe put you at ease, or maybe a place that you've been that, you know, the minute you think about that, you start to relax. So that's kind of what guided imagery is. Aromatherapy is something that does work for people. There's a reason that, you know, back in probably like the 70s or so, they used to put the sachets of lavender in the hotels, like on the pillow and stuff like that. Lavender does help with that. It does help with feelings of calmness. So aromatherapy can help. Weighted blankets appear to be all the rage right now. I don't know if have you seen these, the weighted blankets? Yeah. And they're not any thicker than any other blanket. I don't know what material they use, but some people like that. They, you know, I need something on me, but I don't want a lot. I just want like a sheet, you know, something like that. Some people want a really heavy blanket and that helps them fall asleep more. Avoid clutter. You know, we talked about that. You don't want stuff on the floor, things like that. But clutter in general can make you feel anxious, unless you're someone that likes clutter. You know, if that's, you know, I have, you know, when my mom passed away, she had been, you know, 14-room house, had been there for 50 plus years, and, you know, I had grown up there, so there were tons of stuff. And you cannot get rid of things anymore. It's really hard, you know, and you don't want to throw stuff away because it was your mom, you know, stuff like that. So I kept putting stuff on Facebook, and it was all stuff like cut glass and china and wooden, things that people just don't really want anymore. And one night I had this knock on the door, and I thought they were a husband and wife, but they turned out they were brother and sister, and they were from Swampscott. And they drove all the way down, and she knocks, and this is how she introduced herself. She goes, "Hi, we're hoarders." Come on in. So they took tons and tons and tons of stuff. They filled the truck. I was running into other rooms going, "What about this? Do you want this?" So they took all this stuff, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, I felt comforted by getting rid of all the stuff. Like, I was calm, and my anxiety was going away, and I could see the glee with them, and I'm like, they're going to go home and sleep like babies. They're going to, you know, have all this new stuff, you know. So different things for different people, but as a general rule, I think clutter probably bothers most people. Some good plants to have in your bedroom: lavender, aloe vera, peace lily. They all have, you know, some light requirements. Lavender needs a little bit more light, so if your bedroom is dark, take it out during the day and put it back in there, you know, at night. This one always is very interesting: room temperature. Does anyone know what the ideal temperature is for sleeping? So it's between 67 and 70. I agree. I agree. If I could put it on 50 at night, I would, but I don't think I could get away with it. But yeah, so 67 I think is kind of like the sweet spot of where they say. But to me that's very high. It seems high, but who knows? Paint walls common colors. That does work. There's a reason they used to paint like hospitals, the pastel greens and all that stuff was supposed to be soothing. I actually, believe it or not, I did a little research and I actually picked a light blue for my bedroom that I really like. It's kind of capish like, but it's not too dark. I'm sick as a guy. I was sick of like brown and tan and all that. So this really worked out well for me. And then, humidifiers and air purifiers, those are always helpful, especially if you're someone that gets like stuffed up or something like that, because that can wake you up too, breathing. And then there's, remember I mentioned that I put some things up here kind of under duress. So Feng Shui, I apologize if you're a believer in it. Do anyone not know what Feng Shui is? Feng Shui, okay, so Feng Shui is being like in harmony with the things around you. So, for example, Feng Shui would tell you that, and I don't know if this is actually the correct one, but you should sleep with your head facing west, and you'll sleep better. Like that's Feng Shui. You should, if you have, if your room is rectangular, it should be symmetrical, when you lay things out. That's what Feng Shui is. It's about the energy of a room and things like that. And you can see I'm just not into it. So, but if you are, that's okay. If that works for you, if that works for you, that's fine, So some final thoughts. So, one of the things, this works in life. This is something I used to, when I worked in a school, actually it was, my boss used to tell me this. I was a principal and the superintendent used to tell me, he would say, listen, there is no one magic solution that's going to turn this school around. You're not just going to snap your fingers or do any one thing that's going to change it. You're going to do 100 little things, and those are going to change it. And he was right, and it's true about almost anything, particularly about sleep. It's all those things that we just went through. Not any one thing is going to change your life, but if you pick 3 or 4 and you say, gee, these 3 or 4 things make sense to me, I think I can do them, you will see a difference. You will. Occam's razor, who knows what that is? All right, Occam's razor it's very simple. Once I say it, you're going to say, oh yeah, it's true. Occam's razor holds that the simplest solution is usually the correct solution. So, for example, this is a little morbid, but a woman gets killed. Who's generally at fault? The male in her life, right? That's Occam's razor. The simplest solution is usually the right solution. So when you're thinking about sleep, think about the simplest solution first. It could be, we just talked about temperature. It could be turning your house down 2 degrees, and that could solve some of your problems. Not all of them, but that could solve some of your problems. So start with some of the simple ones, before you go out and buy a $200 air purifier. Start with some of the simple ones first and see where that gets you. And then the last kind of thought that I'll leave you with around sleep is the 20-minute rule. Who knows what that is? If you're not asleep within 20 minutes, get up and do something else. Go watch TV, go wash some dishes, go read a book, go to another room. I get up and I play with the dog because she's happy to get up no matter what. She doesn't care. So I get up and I go in the other room with her and I'll maybe pour a glass of milk or something and play a little tug of war with her. And then if I start feeling tired, I'll go back to bed. All right, so that's the 20-minute rule. Questions? Comments? Insults? You guys have been great. I thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead.
What about what they call the syndrome they call puppy mind?
Puppy mind.
You just can't slow your mind down.
Okay, so that, great question. I've never heard of puppy mind, but it makes sense. I've heard that. You can't slow your mind down. A very common problem. Use the visualization. Definitely use that. Use the breathing. That 4-7-8 one, that works. I'm someone like that. I don't get necessarily race with nervous stuff. I race with excited, like I might have an idea for a new workshop or something, and I'm laying there thinking about it. I'm like, I gotta shut this off. Another thing, just a small tip, and I actually learned this one from Stephen King. Write it down. Something's bugging you. It's running through your head. It's running through your head. You can't get it out of your head. Grab a little piece of paper and just jot a little note to yourself, like, remember such and such, and put it over there, and maybe that will kind of give you permission to calm down a little bit. So little tricks like that. It really is just fooling your brain if you think about it. When I was flirting with diabetes, I'm sitting in the doctor's office, and my doctor, he's in Quincy, as a matter of fact. He's a little stern, which I guess I need. So he's like, your blood sugar level this, and your blood sugar level that. And I'm sitting there saying, oh no, I don't need anything bad. I don't need anything bad. And then I went home, and at the next visit I came in, and I had improved. And he said, what do you attribute the improvement to? And I said, I had an honest conversation with myself, and I realized that the people we are best at lying to are ourselves. Right? We are. So it pays to sometimes just have an honest conversation and just say, what am I doing that's contributing to that? I had to do it with my alcohol consumption. Over the pandemic, like a lot of people, I just kind of got in this routine. I was rum and coke, every night. There's nothing else to do, and you get in this routine, and all of a sudden one day you go, wait a minute, I'm drinking, a lot more than I should be, and I had to kind of get a hold of myself and stop. But I had to have that conversation with myself because I was kidding myself all along. I wasn't telling myself the truth. Like, you're drinking 4 drinks a day. I wasn't telling myself that. I poured a half of one.
Did it help you sleep?
So she just asked a really loaded question. She said, did it help you sleep?
You're not supposed to have the
It ruined my sleep for a while. It took about 2 months for me to get back to my routine that I was before I had become what I would say maybe a problem drinker. But it took about 2 months. I went through hell. I really went. That's what kind of got me going in some of this stuff. I went through hell of not being able to sleep, and I was tempted. I'm like, if I just go have a shot, and then I'll be able to go to sleep, or a glass of wine or something. I'll be able to go to sleep. No, and I just resisted it. But it took about 2 months. And finally, I told you I'm in that weird pattern now where I'm getting up, but I don't feel tired. But it did take a while. And I think with any lifestyle change, it does take a while to kind of introduce it into your life as something regular. So he described, there's an Eastern philosophy that you wake up early in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, and you have a realization about your life or something like that. What do you do with that? His question was, what do you do with that? My answer is you run with that. Because if you have a realization about your life, get up and do whatever it is. And I can tell you, as somebody who, I've written books and done creative things, I have that. I had never heard that before. That's the first time I've heard of that. But as soon as you said it, I was thinking, that happens to me a lot. I have my best thoughts sometimes. Remember I mentioned I used to nap? Sometimes when I was writing, what I would do is I'd write. I was a teacher, so I had the summers off. So I'd write during the day, and then around 1 o'clock, I'd go take a nap, and I'd wake up 20 minutes, half hour later, and I'd have this epiphany with what I was writing. It would just, boom, all fall right into place. So there is definitely something to be said for kind of turning your mind off a little bit, and it gives you a chance to look at things with a fresh perspective. Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm going to look into that more. There are people that can function on 5 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep. There absolutely are. And as long as you feel okay and your physical health is fine, I don't see an issue with that. You heard me say earlier, I'm trying to watch less TV, and part of it is because there's a lot of garbage on now. That's partly because I probably have watched everything that's good, But one of the things that I do is I'm trying to do something a little more active, not physically active, but mentally active at night. So for me, I actually just have my laptop, and I just kind of sit there, and I find that where I'm interacting with it, even though I'm still watching something on the laptop, I'm interacting more, it keeps me awake, So you might want to, think of something like that. If it's not a laptop for you, it could be a crossword puzzle, it could be a book, It could, something other than just passively sitting and watching, because that's really why you're falling asleep. Is you're passively watching something, a commercial comes on, you're not interested, you just slip right off to sleep. You've been a great crowd. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.